What's up everybody, it's Joe here with Joseph Blake Photography, and in today's video we've got some really big news coming out of Fuji that it looks like they're going to be disrupting the rangefinder market and maybe potentially giving Leica a little bit of competition. Let's jump in and talk about this medium format rangefinder camera. So I'm Joe, this is my channel, Joseph Blake Photography. I am a working photographer here in Las Vegas. I do portraits and adventure photography. I also shoot occasionally in Southern California. This is my channel, Joseph Blake Photography, where we talk about tech and news and gear and tips and tricks and how-tos for everybody who's creating content, whether you're a working photographer, videographer, if you're creating here on YouTube, elsewhere in social media, or really anywhere where you might be delivering to clients or just making stuff that's cool and using the gear that we're talking about. If that's what you're into, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And if at the end of the video you think that I've done a good job, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like button. Down below you got links to all my social media accounts, as well as all the gear that I use both here in the studio and when I am out working. But that's enough about me and the channel. Let's jump into talking about this camera. So I think Fuji has been doing really a lot of super cool stuff. They're not a kind of top line player, right? Sony and Canon are kind of fighting for that top spot. Nikon not too far behind. And Fuji kind of gets to be this underdog cult favorite of a brand. And rightfully so, they make phenomenal products. And they make stuff that people really like. And one of the camera segments that they've been in for a little while and have been very popular in is medium format or larger format sensors. And the current flagship of their mirrorless medium format line is the GFX100 Mark II. Not only is it a giant medium format style sensor, but it is also a 102 megapixel sensor. So while we're all over here fighting about the R5 Mark II's 45 megapixels or, Sony's 60 megapixels, Fuji's out here with 100 plus. But that is a medium format sensor. So we've talked about on the channel before, the smaller you make your pixels, the worse they are normally at picking up light. Well, Fuji said, we want a super high resolution sensor, let's just make it bigger. And before the 100 series, they had the GFX50 or the 50 megapixel series, which I think is an important series to talk about considering the fact that the 50R was a rangefinder style version of their medium format or large format style sensor. But the rumors that we're getting are that Fuji will be taking a 100 megapixel CMOS sensor and putting it into a rangefinder style fixed lens camera. And one thing that we know is that the branding on this will be GFX. It'll be GFX100RF. So not super different than the GFX50R. They've added F for finder, I'm assuming, for rangefinder, but that will be the branding that they'll probably be using. And on the style side of things, what we're hearing is that it will be similar in size, not exactly the same size, but similar in size to the X Pro 3. Now, the X Pro 3 has a body that's really compact, and it's also interestingly made out of titanium and magnesium, and Fuji actually made a big deal out of the kind of the feel in the hand of that product, which again points towards the potential for an attempt at positioning it near kind of Leica in terms of that rangefinder style. But the X Pro 3 is an APS-C camera with a 22 millimeter sensor, and this is bigger than full frame, which is 35. This is going to be 40 plus millimeters, probably 43 millimeters, if they're going to be using the same sensor out of the GFX100 II, which would mean that this thing is going to be all sensor. It's going to be all front mount. It's going to be very large. One thing we don't know is whether or not the new GFX100RF will be borrowing any of the features or specific design elements from the X Pro 3, which are, as a rangefinder camera, to kind of remove distractions and make it very kind of analog feeling, specifically with the rangefinder viewfinder and the kind of hidden LCD display. But if they do incorporate the sensor from the GFX100 II, that's a 102 megapixel large format sensor, and it's been coupled with the X Processor 5. That gives it the autofocus capability that it has, as well as some of the speed that it has. Now, it is not a speed demon. I don't think that anyone would be expecting a large format sensor like this or a camera like this to be a super fast. You're not going to be rattling off 40 frames per second with this camera. That's really not what it's intended for. I would assume that we would see something similar to 8 frames a second that we see out of the existing GFX with existing AF tracking and algorithms that we see in the current model. I want to break in really quick and talk about my Instagram giveaway. I receive a lot of gear from companies who want me to review their products. I do not have a need for a majority of this gear, and so I am giving a lot of it away. So I'm running a contest right now, and if you go to the video that I'm gonna link up here, and I've also linked it down below, there's a short where I explain the specifics of this giveaway. Head over to my Instagram account, follow me there, and then come back and tell me that you've liked all my posts on Instagram and that you shared things out, and I will enter you into a giveaway for these products. I'll reach out to you and say, okay, here's the list of stuff that I've got, and what would you like? And you can go shopping in my gear vault. I just got some new lights from a couple of companies, as well as a tripod, gimbals. There's so much stuff. Light modifiers. I've got some lenses for mobile photography. Let me know by going to my Instagram, following me there, liking all of my posts there, and then go ahead and let me know back in the comments that you've entered, and I will include you in that drawing. Not sure if we'll see that reduced blackout mode with the additional 5.3 frame per second no blackout feature that we have in the GFX100 II, or if that's even something anyone would really care about. Let me know down in the comments if you really care about blackout free shooting with a rangefinder camera. What I would expect and hope to see would be the image quality coming from the GFX100's sensor with that reduced 80 ISO, that 16-bit shooting, and the improved micro lenses on the sensor to allow for just super high quality corners, as well as HEIF or HEIF image support, especially if this is going to be just kind of a fun travel camera with super high quality. Those are 10-bit, high resolution, high dynamic range images that can be quickly and easily shared. One feature from the GFX100 II that I do not expect to see is the pixel shift technology, where it utilizes the built-in image stabilization to create a higher resolution image. And the reason for that is that we do not believe that this camera will have in-body image stabilization, which we'll talk about in a second. One thing that this camera will absolutely have is Fuji's film simulation modes, which really kind of round out that analog feel of having a camera like this. And I'm sure that they'll probably be coming out with a couple of new film adaptations, a couple of new film modes, as well as probably some of the effects and definitely the grain effect that you can get in the GFX100. Not sure if skin smoothing, clarity toning, or any of that sort of thing are gonna make its way into this camera, as I don't really think that that's something that would be appreciated by the folks who would potentially purchase this camera. And video-wise, we really don't know anything. I would assume 4K 60, maybe slightly cropped, we'll see. But again, no image stabilization built into the body, which becomes interesting when we talk about the lens. So this rangefinder camera is expected to be a fixed lens camera, meaning you don't remove the lens. Now we've seen 3 different patents from Fuji for what was expected to be the lens that would fit this camera. There is a 35, a 40, and a 50 millimeter f3.5. But on medium format, those are going to be slightly wider. And the one that we're hearing is more than likely going to be paired with this body is the 35 millimeter, which on a medium format is going to be the equivalent of a 28. What's still somewhat in dispute is the designed aperture for that lens. We've seen in patent filings that it would be a 3.5, but in the leaked specs that we have right now, it's going to be an f4. So 28 millimeters on a medium format, small compact rangefinder camera is pretty good for street photography, travel photography. I think that is a pretty good compromise in terms of the field of view that you'd be looking for the types of shots that you'd want to get with this camera. Where I'm kind of confused is in the maximum aperture of this lens at f4. Now, medium format sensors can absolutely bring in more light, but without the IBIS in the camera, and I'm going to assume that this lens will not be stabilized, and having an f4 aperture, light gathering and shutter speed is going to be something you're going to have to really pay close attention to with this camera. Now, if it is an f3.5, that's going to be the equivalent depth of field of f2.8, but the light gathering capability is still going to be around the same as a f4. Timeline on this camera is expected to be the first quarter of 2025, so we'll probably be seeing it here in the next 3 or 4 months. We've got some conventions coming up in the next few months that might be a good place to potentially release it and show it off to the public and the press. Price-wise, the estimate right now is looking around $4,000. Now, this is a very niche product, I think, but interesting. And as they did with the 50R. It's not uncommon for Fuji to put their higher end products eventually into these rangefinder style bodies. It's very popular with the folks who are specifically looking at Fuji and purchasing Fuji. And as a Canon shooter and someone who loves those kind of analog looking bodies, I really hope that this pushes a company like Canon to get into this market and potentially make us an EOS R and make us an RF style, you know, F1 or AE1 program body style camera. That's something that I'm hoping for and looking forward to potentially. So let me know down in the comments if this is the type of camera that you would buy. Obviously, this isn't gonna be something that you're gonna, run a production company on or really do a whole lot of paid work for. That's not really what this would necessarily be for. This is for feels, right? And for compact size and versatility in an environment where maybe you just don't have the bag space and you're looking for something small and easy and dedicated for this type of photography. If that's the kind of thing that you are shooting, let me know down in the comments. I'd be very curious to hear from you and kind of what your opinion is on this and if this is something that you would potentially be looking for. If I hear anything more, I will post another video as well as info when it does ship, which is expected again, March-ish of next year, 2025. But that's all the news that we have right now on the GFX100RF medium format rangefinder camera from Fuji. If that's the kind of thing that you're into, let me know down in the comments. If you're super interested, go ahead and hit subscribe, and when I get new information, I will post about it. You can also find me on all of my social media feeds down below. And last but not least, don't forget about the Instagram giveaway. Go ahead and head down below, find me on all my social media feeds, including Instagram. Find that short, go there, do what I told you to do, and get some free gear for yourself. Like this video if you thought that it was informative, and again, I will see you in the next one. Thanks.